wants to discuss the validity of Christianity. Hi, Death is Conquered. Hi.
How you doing?
Good.
Last week I called in to Jim Barrows and Jay and Mike were in the Atheist Experience, and I talked about the validity to actually, we were talking about. I don't want to shift the topic, but last week I called in about outlawing, a speech against blasphemy. So what Jim Barrows and Jay and Mike told me is because, call another show and prove to us the valid claims or what makes actually, Christianity a valid faith. So today I called in to talk about what makes, in my opinion, what makes Christianity true.
Yeah, can you do something about your background noise? Because you are very difficult to understand for me with all your background noise.
Okay, what about now?
A little better.
Okay.
I didn't understand anything, by the way.
Okay. Well, I'm just calling in to actually say that, what are the things that makes, Christianity true, in my opinion? Okay. And what are objective measures that could make, apostolic doctrine true?
Okay, go ahead. Give us the first one.
So my first will be the peer review in the New Testament. So if you look at Galatians chapter 2, Paul says that his gospel was certified by James, Peter, and James, as well as Peter and all the other apostles. So and also you see in 2 Peter chapter 2 that Peter's gospel was consistent with the words of the Lord.
So the problem you have here is that a book can confirm itself, right? And that doesn't necessarily mean the book is true. We could see the same thing in The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings, right? Because The Lord of the Rings could be, confirmed that Bilbo went through, found the ring. Just because that's an internal thing to the Bible, and that's assuming. I know that several of Paul's letters are known to be forgeries, and I don't remember if Galatians is one or not, but that doesn't really matter. So what? It has an internal consistency that says that it's true, but that doesn't buy you anything. You have to look outside the Bible for things that are true, because the Bible is the claim. So the Bible claims that in this case that Paul went to James and a bunch of other apostles and got his gospel approved. Okay. How do we know any of those people actually existed? How do we know that they actually did that? And how do we know what it actually means to have it approved? Because you could make the case that Paul never saw a living Jesus. He only saw a spiritual Jesus, and that what Paul preached is very different from what the others preached. So in what sense was what he was preaching true? So I don't care that you found an internal consistency with the Bible. I want some sort of external validation from the book.
What I would disagree is, first of all, I don't think the Bible is a book. I think the Bible is a collection of books. So,
right.
Even when the writers were
so is The
writing,
Hobbit.
I don't think they were thinking.
The Hobbit and the Lord of the Rings are also a collection of books, right? They're series. The Lord of the Rings is a series of 3 books, and The Hobbit is 1 book, so you have 4 books total. So what? Dresden Files is 15 books. Again, so what? It doesn't really change what my counterclaim or my counterargument to you is. How do you know it's true? How do you know that actually happened? What do you have that is external to the Bible? Because fantasy books confirm themselves all the time, right? Fantasy books have people who make predictions and make prophecies, and then someone in the book makes those prophecies true. Big deal. I don't care. So what is it? So I don't care that that your series of books is internally consistent or has internal references. That doesn't buy you anything for me. And I don't know why it buys anything for you either, but apparently it does. So that claim, rejected. What else you got?
Okay. I am a presuppositionalist. I'm a presuppositionalist.
Oh, good. I
so,
presuppose that you're a bunch of raccoons in a human suit.
what?
I presuppose that you are a bunch of raccoons in a human suit.
No. What I'm saying is, like, I presuppose that the laws of logic is really important to actually verify the truth of a claim.
I agree.
Okay,
you
Emmanuel.
have no violation of the laws of logic here. You have no violation of the
Well,
laws of
no.
logic here. What you have is a book setting up something to be true, and now you need to go look for external proof that that book is true. And if you don't, then I can claim that the Dresden Files are all true, because the Dresden Files take place in Chicago. They mention real things in Chicago. They mention real places in, real businesses in Chicago that all exist. So what? And they're all internally consistent, and they're all follow. And there's prophecies that the main character Harry Dresden is in fact keeping. So what?
The thing. Okay. By the way, can I respond, because Armin was saying that he had a question? But should I go on first, or Armin?
No, go ahead, Armin.
So
No. So your argument is Paul said somebody like certified what Peter said is correct, then basically goes.
I said no. I did not say that. I said Paul was a letter apostle of Jesus Christ, and Paul's gospel was certified by Peter, James. And all the other apostles that were at the time.
How do you know
when Christ was crucified?
How do you know all these?
resurrected?
How do we know all these people are telling the truth? Why do you trust any of these guys?
Why I trust is, like, first of all, this is not a thing that. So I'm not saying that all the things that are claimed in the gospel is verifiable.
No.
That's not my claim here. My claim here is, if we look at the gospel and the doctrines that are in the New Testament, it doesn't violate the laws of logic.
No. My question.
Because
my question is: Can Paul have said something that is not true? Is it possible? Is it possible for Paul to have said something that is not true? Is that possible?
How could it be? Because his doctrine is the same as Peter's or James.
Is it?
Well,
but I can make the case that it's not. I mean, there are multiple people. There are biblical scholars who make the case that Paul's Jesus was not the same as the Jesus of Peter. Because Paul never met the real Jesus, right? Paul only met a spiritual Jesus, and Paul's teachings are in keeping with a lot of the other things that were in the air at the time in terms of multiple heavens and things like that. I mean, you can make the case, but that wasn't the case. So that goes back to my question: is, what does that mean that Peter and the other disciples approved it?
I'm so sorry. I am just like leaving work right now, and I was saying goodbye, and I did not hear what you said.
Oh, I just basically asked you I basically just questioned whether or not, what does it mean that those gospels were approved? And then, like Armin said, how do you know that actually happened? How do you know that Paul's just not making it up wholesale?
Because, like, for example, if you go to Jim, you said that they preach different Jesuses. They preach different Christ.
Paul did.
And
Paul did, yes.
Okay, you're saying because Paul was not an apostle or follower of Christ at the time Jesus was in the flesh, right? But if Christ is the same yesterday, today, and forever, even
I don't know that you just made a claim that I don't accept. I don't think that he is the same today. I don't think he has that consistency in his nature at all. Not from the stories. It doesn't follow. He doesn't have the same nature in the New Testament that he does in the Old Testament. They're two very different characters. So I don't accept that at all. So again, you need to prove that what Paul was preaching was actually approved by Peter or anybody else, and not just Paul saying that. So, and then when he does say that, exactly what parts of Paul's gospel do they say is correct?
The part where Christ was crucified and rose from the dead. That part is consistent with all the other apostles.
So what?
So
I mean, it's consistent with every character in the story of Dresden that they all thought Dresden was died, and then there's even a story of Dresden while he was dead and the things that he did or nearly dead, and then he came back. So that's also there. So again, how do I tell the difference between Dresden's resurrection and Jesus's resurrection?
Because Christ's resurrection is consistent also with the Old Testament, not just the New Testament, but you could actually look at Isaiah.
And Dresden's resurrection is consistent with his prophecy as well. So what?
No, like you're trying so hard not to believe in the concept.
No, what I'm asking you to do is to prove something outside of the Bible, and you keep going back to the Bible. And I even brought up the fact that if you have a bunch of prophecies in book 1, it is not unusual. In fact, it is very common for book 2 to have those prophecies get fulfilled, because everybody who was writing about it in book 2 in the New Testament knew about those prophecies and tried to include them. That's why we have 2 different stories of Jesus. One, Jesus riding a mule, and I forget what the other one was, riding an ass and a mule or something along those lines. He wrote 2 different things then. Why was that? Because he had 2 different prophecies to fulfill. And so we have 2 different stories. He wrote two different beasts in at the same time just to keep both prophecies. Right? The New Testament wasn't written, it doesn't have to be written by a person to make those prophecies be true. It just has to be written by somebody who knows the prophecies. So again, you don't have anything here. All you have is book 2 keeping the prophecies of book 1. Okay, everybody, all the writers of book 2 knew about book 1. They were educated, unlike every single one of Jesus's followers who are not educated, unlettered, and we know that from Acts. So you've got some more explaining to do here, but that doesn't work. That doesn't work at all.
So, Emmanuel, how do you, like, in an environment where everybody knows, like, it was very common for people to create myths, given that you have very, very popular predictions and prophecies about the future, don't you understand how it's very understandable why when people write these new stories and myths, they will try to make it so that it matches the prophecies that they have in their holy books? And also, given that these tropes and these stories and these prophecies are common in that environment, why is it so bizarre for people to have, like, you have Peter and you have Paul, and there are popular stories and myths in that environment, and they're both agreeing on some of them being the same? Like, I don't understand why does that make them not a myth? Like, we see that everywhere else. We see that in environments like in Greek mythology. We see people agreeing on the myth and basically prophecies existing there that people play on to make new mythology. We see that in ancient Egyptian, Sumerian, Persian mythology. We see that in Mayan mythology. We see that everywhere. This does not prove that they're not myths, given that we see this exact same thing that you're describing repeated in other places where you even believe that they are myths.
Is that a question, or are you saying that?
Yeah, but it's a question. I'm saying, like, what you're describing to us is not something that shows to us that these stories are not myths. Given that it's more easier to explain this, given that we have prophecies, we have an environment where people are making stories. They obviously it's popular to make your stories match the already existing prophecies. And the similarities between the stories is because certain stories and certain tropes are popular in that environment. Why is any of this show that they are not myths and they're actually true?
Because, like, you're assuming that these stories are myths. So you're
I'm not
somewhere.
I'm not assuming. I'm not assuming. I'm asking you, how do you know it's not myth? I didn't make any claims. You're claiming that they're real. I'm saying you have to exhaust all these other alternatives, and you haven't. I'm saying where's the contradiction between what you're saying and these stories being mythologies?
Because, like, as I told you, the method that they use, for example, I think it was in University of California, that a certain scientist, he said that he found, he was doing like an experiment, and he did like a research that he was saying that, like the water that we drink, it has like a certain hormonal effect. And other scientists actually peer-reviewed his research, and they said that he was biased. So
You have completely gone off the rails with this because
What
you
is
have
this?
never mentioned this scientist with anything you've said so far. So as far as I'm concerned, this is a complete non sequitur. Can we get back on topic? Why would you expect book 2 to not fulfill book 1's prophecies? How do you know that those prophecies were fulfilled, given that that is a common trope?
Because the apostles of the New Testament were authorized by God, right? God.
How do you know that? How do you know that actually happened? Because remember, we don't accept the claim that God is true. So you saying that God approves something is absolutely no different than the Queen of Air and Darkness, Mab, approving something that Harry Dresden did. They're both fictional characters. You need to prove that these characters were real. And then you need to prove that they actually had the supernatural powers that are claimed. And you haven't done any of that work yet. You simply start with the assumption that the Bible is true. Why should I start with that assumption?
Because the visible things, like the things in nature, we know that the natural is from the supernatural. We know that the universe was created.
No, we don't know that. We don't know that the universe is created. We know the universe had a beginning. The current local instance of this universe had a beginning. We know that, but we don't know what caused it. You're just making that claim.
No, I'm not making that claim. You could go to Hebrews 11:2 and see that the universe.
Again, you're okay. Post hoc rationalization. Can you demonstrate that the authors of Hebrews actually knew what they were talking about, and you just aren't assigning meaning that the authors never had?
Do you not see why it's circular what you're saying to us? Do you not see that you're making a claim that there's a God, and then you're going to scripture that is only reliable if there is a God to prove that prove your God? Do you not see the circular nature of what you're telling us?
Okay. Let's throw out all the scriptures, right, out of our conversation, right? Let's not code the scriptures. So in reality, the things that we see, we observe that the visible things are created in the image of the invisible things. For example, I live in.
No, we don't.
We don't. Okay.
Invisible things by their very nature don't have any image. That's why we call them invisible.
Yeah, and then calling the quantum mechanics the invisible is really weird. So yeah, what do you? I guess I should go back. Let me retract the no, we don't. What do you mean by invisible?
Invisible in a sense that we can't actually see God, right? Even when we go to heaven,
you're still making the claim that God exists, which we don't reject. We're looking for evidence, right? And there is nothing in the natural world, there's no phenomenon that we can show requires something supernatural. Every phenomenon, from storms to earthquakes, wind, tornadoes, hurricanes, disease, all of these things all at one time had supernatural causes, and we now know that's all BS. So we need to make sure that we don't see any need for anything supernatural for anything. And the supernatural, when it comes up against the natural explanation, fails. So first, can you establish what supernatural thing exists and how the supernatural interacts with the natural?
For example, we have, I've said it before, but I don't want to go there again. The thing that show me that God is actually real is we seem to have a consistent moral model when we live on this earth.
Okay,
right?
except there's a better explanation for morals than God. Because right now, what you have to do is you have to explain why we see morals in meerkats, rats, horses, wolves, and every other social species all have the exact same element of morals that we do. So now you've got to explain that. But I can explain that naturally because cooperation is a survival strategy. And that explains why meerkats will risk their lives to warn their group of an incoming predator, just like humans will. That's why we can see in rats that rats will not knowingly commit an action that will hurt another rat, even if they don't know that rat, and no matter what the reward is. That's not something that humans will do. We can see all these differences in every social animal. So how do you explain that we see moral behavior in non-human animals with God. How do you explain that?
Because all the species were created with God, right? So that's why we have, for example, a dog.
Why would God put morals into meerkats? Why would God make meerkats moral? Have morals in meerkats?
Because nature has to balance for us to survive.
But that's a claim. Okay, no. But Emmanuel, do you understand? For you to prove something, when you're trying to prove something, you cannot put the thing that you're trying to prove inside the argument itself. Like you are saying, we have morality. You're trying to use morality as a way to prove that there's a God. But then in the argument, you're pre-assuming God. But without pre-assuming God, can you tell us why humans and animals having morality or any sense of like kindness or cooperation, why does that prove God? Can you tell us how do you connect these together without using God himself? Because remember, we haven't concluded God yet, so you cannot use God in your arguments. You have to get us there before you could use it. So tell us why morality proves the existence of God.
Because if you see all the other religion God claims, for example, there's only one God, right? The Father.
We don't care about the other gods. We want you to talk about your God.
I just told you, Emmanuel. Did you not understand? I just told you cannot use God. We haven't assumed God yet. You cannot pre-assume God in your proof for the existence of God. I just told you that, and the first thing you said, you mentioned God. Like, do you not understand how proving something works? That your God is supposed to be in the conclusion, not in the premises of your argument.
Okay, the premise is for us to exist in nature, for nature to balance itself, we need a sort of like kindness and compassion to our own species, right? So for that to actually occur, there has to be an outside source, which is a creator type.
No.
Why?
Why does it have to come from outside? Why can't it just be that cooperation is a survival strategy and is a byproduct of evolution? I have a perfectly natural explanation that explains moral behavior in every single social species we come across. We even see it in bacteria. So, or some elements of it, bacteria. It's very primitive. But we see this, and I have a natural explanation for it. Where's God needed in my explanation? Where's God in that?
Because, like, just if everyone was psychotic, there are people who have psychotic problems, right?
And that's consistent with nature, not with God. Otherwise, God screwed his creation up.
Tell us, Emmanuel, why? Tell us why the God explanation is the only explanation that is reasonable for us having morality. Tell us that.
Because if I took on your worldview, let's say I don't believe in any sort of deity or a creator, right? I don't believe that the Christian God and all the other gods are false, right? Let's say I'm skeptic or agnostic, and that's the scenario. In my scenario, I have nothing to actually justify why we see, like, for example, when I see a person who is distressed, when I see people in calamity, why do I feel that sort of empathy, right?
Because you recognize. Yeah, I just told you that. Because cooperation is a survival strategy. I do it out of selfish interest. I can do it purely out of selfish interest. I can do it simply because I want other people to help me if I was in that situation, right? That's why we have empathy. But you're pointing out that we have people, who are born without empathy, actually is evidence in my favor and not evidence in yours, because that would mean that God screwed up his creation.
No.
And that God's a bad designer.
No,
yeah.
See, Emmanuel, social animals that live together, okay? If they have a desire for cooperation, it's easier for them to survive, okay? So it's so obvious why we have that natural trait, because with that desire, we will work with each other more effectively. And if we work with each other more effectively, there's a higher chance for us not to go extinct.
Yep.
That's a pretty easy. It's pretty easy to explain this. I don't know. I understand why you're confused by this.
Right.
Okay, but can I just respond to what Jim said? Because in my worldview, the reason why this sort of people exist is because God has predestined a certain people for honor and a certain people for dishonor. That's why we have Christians and atheists.
Why would he do that? What's the purpose in doing that? Why would he create things? Why would a perfect being create imperfect things?
Because why did he create hell? Like, what is the point of him actually creating an eternal torment, right?
I have no idea. You're the one making these claims. You come up with the reasoning. I'm asking you, what is all this reason? What's the reason behind it? But let's stick to the question I actually asked. What's the reason for him creating people who have no empathy?
Because he gets glory. At the end, when they die, they go to hell, right? All murderers, stealers, the people who don't obey the
God wants people to go to hell, is what you're telling me.
God gets glory out of glory out of burning people, right? God creates imperfect beings so he could burn them because for his glory. I burn you for my glory. That's amazing.
That makes
beautiful.
Him a moral monster. That makes him a monster. That makes him evil. That makes him wrong. Because if any human created kids, had kids born simply so they could torture them, there'd be people who are against the death penalty who would all of a sudden be for it for that. And we definitely at least, lock them up and throw away the key. So that makes them a moral monster. That's not helping your case.
Emmanuel, I want to make this clear. You just told us that God makes us imperfect so he could burn us for his glory. That sounds demonic. Like, are you sure you're on the good side? If your religion is true, are you sure you're on the good side of this? Because it seems like it sounds pretty evil.
No. I did not say God created everyone so that he could go as this.
And he created one person just so he could send him to hell. Makes him a moral monster. Makes him less moral than most humans. And definitely makes him less moral than me, because I would never do that. And I would definitely I am not generally for the death penalty, but you show me somebody who is having kids born just so they can torture them later. Yeah, I'm for the death penalty for that guy or gal. Doesn't matter. Whoever that person is, I'm for the death penalty for them. And I'm not normally that way. So you're basically creating a moral monster. You recognize that, right? You recognize that God creating someone just so he could punish them forever is evil.
No, because I don't think that God is evil, because God is creating.
Would you call somebody who creates a living person just so they can torture them? What do you call someone?
No,
is that person evil or good?
No, because if that person is actually giving me gifts and doing good things to me, I could still say that they have been good to me, even though they are doing horrible things to others.
But people without empathy do good things for the people around them so that they can hide the fact that they're actually serial killers. Does that make them good people?
No.
Well, then why are you giving God this excuse?
Because God has saved his chosen elect people who are elected
So
before.
do serial killers. You just said serial killers. Serial killers doing the exact same thing that you claim your God doing are evil, but your God isn't. You're making a special exception for your God.
Emmanuel, am I getting this right? You're saying God is not evil for burning a whole bunch of people that he specifically created to burn, because certain chosen people get to not burn? Is that the reason why God is not evil? Because his chosen people are not going to burn.
Exactly.
Oh, exactly. Okay, great.
Wow. Okay, so a serial killer who doesn't kill his family and does nice things for them, but kills people is morally good. That's what you're saying?
Because the things that I focus on is the people who are going.
You're giving your God special dispensation to be an evil monster. If you took God's behavior and applied that to a human, you'd consider that human evil. We've already established that. But because it's your God, he's good. I don't buy it. I don't buy it for a second. That just makes
Emmanuel,
you
do you
not a
really,
moral monster.
Emmanuel, you realize you're saying God is not evil because he doesn't burn everybody. He burns many people forever based on how he made them. He made them specifically for burning forever, but because he doesn't do that to everybody, he's not evil. Is that what you're saying?
No, because like you're not seeing the entire picture, because all of us deserve to burn in hell, right? But God chose a certain people to actually.
I don't deserve. Why do I deserve to burn in? I don't deserve to burn in hell. Why do I deserve to burn in hell?
Yeah, nobody deserves eternal torment.
You don't
Sorry.
deserve? Okay. Do you believe in the Lord Jesus Christ?
No, we're atheists. Do you remember? Did you forget who you're calling?
I know.
It's called the name of the show is the Atheist Experience. I think you should know that by now. You've been calling us a lot, so I don't know how you haven't caught up to that yet.
No. That was actually a rhetorical question. My point is, if you don't believe in God, then God is going to give you the punishment.
Why? If I'm not, why is it that if I don't believe in God, I deserve to be burned forever? Why?
No. I'm saying all of us deserve it, but
no, I'm saying, and we're countering that with no human being deserves it. Anyway, we're not really getting anywhere. You need to figure out why your God is not a moral monster without making him an exception to, take whatever God does, assume a human did it, and ask yourself, would I want that human behind bars? And if the answer is yes, that also means that you want your God behind bars. So then you need to figure out why you worship this being that does such evil things. So that's what you need to go do, because you believe in an evil God, and there's just no way around it. The closer you get to the God of the Bible, either the Old or the New Testament, the more evil he becomes. And oh, by the way, there's a sect of Christianity that makes that claim. Just as an aside. But anyway, yeah.
Jim, how has this religion survived this long? Like, they're telling that Christianity is a religion that tells us we're all disgusting. We all deserve to burn forever. Why is this religion so popular? I don't understand.
Oh, it's not the quality of the arguments. It's the quality of the violence. It's the quality of the violence. I mean, they convinced the most powerful man on the planet at the time, a Roman emperor, that they were right. And then it spread, by the force and will of his army. And that has been the case. You go look at the conquistadors and what they did in South America. You look what happened here in North America. It was not the quality of their argument; it was the quality of their violence. So yeah.
By the way, if you're a Christian, try coming on our side. Try becoming a humanist atheist, where you're not considered to be a disgusting, worthless filth deserving of eternal torments. Okay, maybe try it. It's nicer on this side. Try it.
It's better.